The other scenario, and this is the part where people lose themselves. They're afraid to take risks. Listen, if you don't take a risk, I guarantee you will not lose. But I also guarantee you will not win.
Welcome everyone back to the podcast. We have a great guest in Villalobos, who was a teacher for LAUSD. He's also a great poet. He's also an inventor who's going to share a lot of great things with us on the podcast, even to motivate us, whether you're in the faith or not. He has such a tremendous background that I'm glad that he's here just to talk about what he's gone through and what he can help us with in our own lives as introverts or even outside of that as well. And how is your day going, Mr. Villalobos?
I'm doing good, man. I'm excited. I'm doing Uber and Lyft this morning, and I went to Irvine and came back, and just having fun.
And it's crazy because you were mentioning you're coming from Pasadena all the way to Irvine.
Yeah, I made $60 in 1 hour.
That is crazy because to hear from you going from being a teacher to now being Uber, how was that whole transition for you?
It's really not a transition because I'm still a teacher. I teach the people in my car in my back seat,
right?
And then they teach me. They tell me stories, and I feel like I went back to college. So I got my bachelor's in Uber University and working on my my master's in Lyft. But I have to have a Tesla for that.
And it was interesting too because I remember even before the podcast, you were mentioning that you're also venturing into Turo as well, right? Mentioning Tesla.
The Turo.com, Turo. If you ever want to rent a 2020 Tacoma from me or a 2021 Tesla, I got those.
And there you go. And now that he's bringing that up too, kind of like who told you about that? What was that story?
It's networking like what we're doing right now. And what I did as a teacher, you talk to people, you exchange ideas with fellow teachers, with students. Students are extremely intelligent. I mean, there's kids 16, 17 years old that know how to do things that I don't know how to do. And so I told a customer, I usually tell them, like, what do you do for a living, sir? Oh, I'm a businessman. Oh, that's interesting. Like, say, for example, I'm going to drop off one of my cars right now that I'm renting, and I have 5 cars for rent. And I make about $5,000 a month.
Wow.
But that's just my tax write-off money. And I said, what? That's your tax write-off money? I'd like that as my income. And he says to me, sir, you can do this too. Anybody can do this. All you need to do is go get yourself a brand new car, and then download Turo.com on your phone. It'll make money all by itself. Sure enough. I put it in there, and people keep calling me. They go into my phone and log in, and then I deliver the book, the car, or they come pick it up. And guess what I do when I come back? I come back on the bus, and I'm working on my 5th book. And this is not my 5th book, but my 5th book is gonna be white like my Tesla, and it's called Ride Sharing for Jesus: Stories about Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Postmates, and Turo.com.
I love that because you're even mentioning too while you're doing Uber as well. You're also kind of like recommending these books for people to kind of hear your story.
Oh yeah, I have them right here, right under my shoulder, and I ask them try to plug into their wants and needs, and then once I see that the window's open, I say, hey, by the way, do you like to read? And they'll say, oh yeah, I do. What about reading something that's written by your driver?
What a hype.
And I usually right under my shoulder here, see, and then I hand over a bottle of hand sanitizer, but you have to hand sanitize your fingers first with my coronavirus juice. But please do not ingest it. Although somebody said we could, don't do it, please.
And when you do present these books, what's the usual reaction from people?
Well, the reaction with them is like, what? Really? You have 4 books, and those colors are so interesting. You mean you rode the bus for 10 years and published 4 books? That's amazing. I'm thinking, well, it was pretty easy for me. I just could have sat there and write, and the real reason I published my very first book, and I remember clearly, a student screamed out when I used to go to school and read my poem of the day.
Yeah.
And he said, your poems are really good, Villalobos. You should publish a book. And I looked at him and said, okay, I think I will.
Did that silver get any? What's the monetization from that?
I should give him some money. Now I don't remember who it was, and if you're listening right now, you probably remember who you are.
You're sitting on $1 million as we speak now. I'm just kidding. But it's beautiful to hear that your students was able. It's almost like I always say, like, peep the signs from God when someone is speaking, or just even the idea that encouraged you to kind of do it.
Yeah.
Did you have any doubts as well coming into like starting your own like poems as well and publishing them?
But many of the poems that I've written are in the third person, simply because I didn't want to come out and say it was me. As a teacher, I was open, but I was also had my defenses up. There's a poem in here that's called "Abused," abused, neglected, and I went through a lot of abuse, including sexual abuse. So imagine how I tried to adapt to the world with all these things, in my mind, being part Korean, part Mexican, and in a world that's not my own. Kind of like the experience you have had, and many people of all races. I mean, you don't need to be white or black or Asian to have some kind of a mental disorder or a disconnection with your society. No, we all have it. We're all humans. Yeah.
It's kind of speaking on your background. How do you feel it molded you to where you're at today, from being a teacher to now being, I know you're an inventor, but also even an author?
How has life molded me?
Yeah, just to do all those goals.
Life is my friend. It's life, as it says. I've gone through so many things, but listen, I went through them. You don't stay anywhere. You keep going. I graduated from high school. I call it, when I retired, I call it graduation. After 30 years, I finally graduated from high school, and I'm moving on. And my memories of the past are there. They're gold. But now I don't dwell on the past. Just yesterday, I gave a ride to a man who said he did not have any talent, but he said this. And I told him, sir, I'm going to steal that, and that's going to be one of my poems. He said this: the past is in the past. The present is beautiful, and the future is mysterious. I said, sir, for a person who does not have talent, you just wrote a poem right now. That's profound. Yeah. Yeah.
And what do you think it is why people kind of stay kind of in the past and they don't want to move forward?
I think if we stay in the past, we move forward, we haven't dealt with our traumas. If you're having issues with your personality, with your self-esteem, go see a counselor, go see a pastor, a priest, talk to your friends, be open about it, read, purchase these 4 books, not because I want to get rich, but these books are good for people who have anxiety, depression. At the same time, you may be a person who have both your feet planted, firmly on, but you might want to reassert yourself and say, oh wow, I'm doing this. I agree with this. And there are millions of books out there, by the way. These are only 4 about self-help. I've read several other books myself on self-improvement. Many of them with a Christian message, because that's not because I'm a Christian I'm going to go out and talk about it, just because that's me. I talk about my books, I talk about everything I do, and I happen to be a Christian, so I talk about that too. So I don't call myself a Christian poet. I mean, that would be like saying, like, you can't read my books if you're not Christian. No.
Yeah. And I love that you said that too, because it's not making it just exclusive, because anybody can read it.
Right.
And I was reading your first book as well, because I was just thinking about, I shared earlier about like money, but I love what you do by giving a different perspective. It isn't just one way, like, oh man, like for example in the poems, like they're making interest off of me, but now I can flip that, I'm making interest off of them.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be a victim mentality. And I love, like you're saying, like you have that option, and you said too, there's only 2 options.
Yes.
You either positive, you think positive, and then you think positive.
There are only 2 choices in life. Either you're positive or you're positive. If you choose anything else, that's on you. I want to be famous for that. It's in the back of this red book.
And for you guys that are listening, it's great that there's 4 books there that have a lot of just, wisdom and life experience from Villalobos that's going to help you see life in a different way for people that are younger, even older as well, because you can never age out knowledge there.
No.
And what led you to ultimately wanting to go up to like 5 books? Was there like a point where you wanted to kind of like take a pause?
I like the number 10.
Oh, okay.
It's just a magical number for me. So I actually have 10 books in my mind, in my heart, and in my gut. And my last book is going to be basically when I'm going to spill the milk. I'm going to say everything about me, and I'm going to be very specific. And it's not going to be for children, okay? It's going and the title of the book is going to be Riding a Lamborghini. Go from riding the bus to riding the Lamborghini. Now it'll probably be a Tesla. I'm not going to buy a Lamborghini because I want to be clean, clean up the air. it'll be the Model S, the one with everything on it. Yeah. But it's moving forward means leaving the past behind. A great philosopher once said, "You got to put the past behind you." His name was Pumbaa, and the Lion King. And if you see the movie, the camera zeroes in on Pumbaa's butt, and it's going like this in the back. It's like, that's the past, man. That's where all the junk comes from. You can leave it, you gotta flush it.
And even hearing about what you're saying with the philosopher and everything that's been happening to you, and even just your tough upbringing, definitely faith was a big component of you kind of overcoming, those traumas and obstacles.
For me, God makes sense, and I'm not trying to push God. It's just, if there is no God, for me, it's like, what hope is there? If there has to be an afterlife, there has to be a reward for the things I did right. And I'm not here to talk about hell. I mean, this is, we live in hell, many people say, but there's got to be consequences for what we do, and because there's consequences here on earth.
Right.
I don't see why there wouldn't be somewhere else, and then again, that's just my opinion. I have no proof. I'm not going to discuss it or argue it. Yeah.
And that's the thing too. Like, kind of like you're mentioning, even to your poems and everything, is like you're saying, there is a faith component to kind of move forward, because that is ultimately what the gospel is a message of hope.
Yes.
And even for you, you're continuing today to help people. And even when you're, as a teacher, I know that you were mentioning, if it's okay to say that, it was kind of forbidden for you to talk about it, right?
Yes, it was. But I did it anyway from the perspective of my poetry. I would tell my students, I'm just sharing myself, guys. And if the word God happens to be in there, it's not that I'm trying to push God.
Right.
But the district and the principal did go after me. They went after my jugular vein. But I stood my ground, and at one point the principal did tell me, Villalobos, we hired you to teach French and Spanish. And I said, you know what, you made a big mistake. You should have asked me, because I don't teach Spanish and French. I teach people. And you and I right now are a testimony to that, because you didn't call me here because I spoke French or I taught you French. You called me here because somehow something about me, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't my French lessons, I don't think, but it was the person inside of me, and then the person I tried to draw out of you. On each one of my students, I would tell them, if you want to go to college to be somebody, don't do it. You're already somebody. The way when you were born, you were somebody. You go to college to pursue a career, but if you think you're a nobody, you need to get spiritual help, because that's not what college is for. Unfortunately, when you're poor, you tend to go to college for those reasons. But then once you're there, you get this culture shock, and I went through that, the culture shock.
And it's for the people listening, that was just a great piece of like a gem, like advice you're saying is like, you don't go somewhere to be something. You already are that person. All you're really doing, kind of like I remember you were sharing, like we're kind of like rocks under pressure. We become diamonds, right?
Yes.
We already are something. We just need to have the right pressure, right circumstances or situations to define us more and our character. We're gonna dip. That's what life is about. But it's about getting back up. And kind of like you're saying, like you had your dips,
Mm-hmm.
and you even said you're mentioning too how unfortunately LAUSD you had some conflicts,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and it was
That's
just
it.
one of those things that continue to push forward to kind of just show who you are
Yes.
as a person.
Yes.
And I love that you say you teach people because ultimately that's what you're in for.
Right.
We're not robots. If it's
Yeah.
just French and all that, then
Yeah.
just read the textbook, take it home.
Yeah.
Why be taught by Villalobos? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And do you
Absolutely.
feel like, what was the motivation to even go into public education? Why not private education?
Well, public was where I grew up. The teachers who were influential to me were in public schools. In fact, most of the people that were influential in my life were my teachers in some way, with the exception of my French father, who is responsible for me speaking French from the time I was 12 years old.
That's crazy.
But he too was a type of a teacher in my life in the absence of my real father. So it made sense to me that I would go cater to the people like myself, not necessarily millionaires who would have their own private French teacher anyway. And the thing is, when you have resources, you can do more. And when you have less resources, you have to work harder to get to point B.
Crazy.
But what's amazing though is that you can get from point A to point B and struggle through it. But when you're there, you look back at it, you feel good about yourself, man. And I'm not saying that millionaires don't feel good about themselves. I mean, I thank God for millionaires, and I thank God for poor people. I'll tell you one thing: if I ever become a millionaire, I won't be one. I'll be a givenaire. I have a poem in here called "Givenaire." I'm gonna give my money away.
And that's beautiful to say.
Oh yeah.
And that's the thing too, is like, you're right, people that do have the resources, it's an easier access and a little bit better, but people that have to work harder, it is something to be proud of because you didn't have the same advantages. And same with the students in public schools. I remember being in classes, and even in your class, where there was like almost 40 students. I'm like, how is one teacher supposed to teach 40 people? And that was just, to me, insane.
And that particular class you're talking about, I actually had 3 preparations. I had a French 2, a French 3, and an AP French, all in the same class.
I remember that.
I was going crazy.
It was like 3 separate groups and each side of the wall. It was funny, but you did it.
Yeah, I did it, man.
And how was it also just kind of like managing the personal life and the teacher life? Because I'm sure it was a lot of work, things to grade, students to look out for.
You know, my personal life was basically my teaching life. It was 24/7. I would easily put in 12 hours a day. I mean, and then on top of that, I used to organize the trips to Europe, if you remember.
I remember that.
And I used to go on the bus with my students and raise money on the bus. Crazy. And so, definitely there's poems in here about riding the bus, how I used to raise money to go to Europe. And so, all of them have some stories. And you know, over 50 students have gone to Europe.
That's amazing.
Because of what we started as a group. It's not me. We were doing it together, you know.
Yeah, and I remember being part of one of the fundraisers too, because I know that you have to kind of also earn the way to go to Europe as well, and that's what I love as well. It's like it's not just given to you.
No.
And I learned a lot too, just even being part of the fundraisers, because I'm just like, well, I have to talk to people, do this and do that, but it's like it builds your character, and also for me, an introvert, it helped out to kind of leave my shell and talk to people. So I think there was a lot of more things to learn from what you were doing.
Yeah, because if you just stay in East LA, or if you just stay in wherever your community is, Orange County, whatever, you need to go from Orange County to East LA, and from East LA to Orange County. You need to be everywhere. You need to be well-rounded. To have a heart for the rich and the poor and everybody.
It's true.
Yeah.
And that's great too, a perspective to learn that you were teaching. Even when you took the students to Europe as well, they were able to see a different world, like you were saying. And someone that was from East LA that didn't get that opportunity, at least you were able to organize something for them to be like, oh, I can do this. If I go to France, I can probably go to Spain, or I can go over here.
Right. Exactly.
And so I think what you did was very inspiring, because you gave the students hope to go beyond East Los Angeles.
Some of those students have made trips after on their own, and
That's amazing.
they told me that I went back. I said, of course you went back.
You said, of course, beautiful.
I've gone back too several times. Just and
Yeah.
it's just fun to open your eyes and see something different.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then even after, retiring from LAUSD and then even doing Uber, you're also an inventor as well, correct?
Oh yes, and I've always, I think they say there's three kinds of intelligences. There's IQ, there's hard worker, and then there's creativity. Obviously, I don't have an IQ, but I'm creative and I'm a hard worker, definitely. So when I started driving Uber, all the mounts that I used would fall down, would break, and if I had it down here, I'd look down and my passengers would be scared. Why is he looking at the floor? The road's over there. So I invented this, and it's just amazing. It lights up at night, and I invested $15,000 in it. It should come out in the market
Wow.
by the end of this year, and you'll see it at Walmart, Target, and Best Buy, and of course Amazon.
Yeah, are you able to disclose the name of the product that's going to be releasing, or is it still on the wraps?
It's still in the wraps, and they're working on it in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania right now. So I think that's all I'll say about it. But you'll see it because it'll light up. It lights up at night. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And then even from that, like, what kind of pushed you in that direction to be like, let me try this out? Because I'm sure there was a bit of fear of actually investing, like you said, $15K. Into
yes.
something.
Well, look at it this way.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't make any money, if I don't even get what I invested back to me, what I think I will get at least what I invested, when I die, I won't be able to take 15 grand with me.
Ah. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't gonna take them anyway. But the other scenario, and this is the part where people lose themselves. They're afraid to take risks. Listen, if you don't take a risk, I guarantee you will not lose. But I also guarantee you will not win. So what if, how many Uber Lyft drivers are there in the world? Millions.
A lot.
Just imagine. You know what? Even if it doesn't happen, I had fun trying, okay? That's the main thing. And when I see the smiles of my passengers in my back seat, I can see them through the mirror. They go like, "What is that, sir?" "Oh, that's a phone mounted." Where'd you get it?" Says, I built it. I invented it. "What? Do you sell those?" I said, "I will soon." I said, "I'm gonna get one." That right there is all I need. I don't need money. I already got paid. See, when I see that smile, when I see that excitement in my passenger, that's all I need. The money comes later.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Like you said, you're not trying to. You can try to take 15 grand with you. I doubt it. I doubt, right? The spirit. But at least you're leaving something behind, a legacy. Or most important, like I remember you were saying, it's about the experiences.
Yeah.
Like sometimes people can get caught up in money so much that they forget to enjoy life, to get up in the morning, give glory.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like, that's when you start to lose the fun in life and people start to complain.
Fun is the key. If you cannot have fun, you're gonna have the opposite. You're gonna find the thorns in the roses. You're gonna find you're gonna think that an asteroid is gonna come down from the earth and land on you. It's like it's the worst case scenarios. But if you have your heart right with God, with yourself, there is a negative side, but let's build on the positive things about the world, about each other.
Right.
And that's why I have great conversation with my passengers. Black, white, Asian, right? And I find out they're humans just like me, just like you. Every one of them, and they're just looking for someone to share with, someone to listen to. And you know what? Inside my Prius, soon will be my Tesla, and inside my Prius, they have the freedom to do that. They have the freedom to speak out, to express themselves.
That's beautiful. I feel like it's like a place where you can just be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Just talk. Just be human, right? Because I feel like the outside world, doesn't really allow you to be yourself. It's
Mhm.
the image that it allows
Yeah.
it to be. And like,
I was once asked, "Sir, do you have a camera in here? Are you afraid like something might happen?" And says, said, "No, I don't have a camera in here, that kind of camera, because I don't want to feel uncomfortable. But there is a camera up there. Well, it's a special camera." And he looked up, and said, "Where?" Says, "Not going. Don't keep looking. Higher, higher."
That's funny.
He's watching everything you're doing right now. It's like,
Amen. Amen. When you think someone's watching you, it's somebody else.
yeah.
That's crazy. And just even thinking about it too, it's like it's amazing to like the spirit that you have is very joyful and hopeful because of your relationship with God.
I would say, I would attribute that to God 100%. I mean, because growing up, there was a moment in my life where I looked at everything I went through. I looked at my community. I looked at my efforts. I looked at my family, and I came to the conclusion that there cannot possibly be a God. But that was the beauty of it, that because of the struggle,
right,
and because of the rewards, and because of discovering later on that these hard times were actually molding me and making me the person I am today, and that was a better definition of God. Someone who is there for you when things are not right, and someone who is there for you when things are right. So yeah, I mean, I see God in my wife, my children, and in you, and my ex-students, everywhere. I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna argue it. I'm not gonna come up with like these theories of like, no. It's just in my heart. I'm just naive. I believe in God.
I love that. And sometimes it's good to have the heart in the right place, like you said, because honestly, the world today we're living in, it's getting, it's a bit dark out there, but when you bring that joy, it lightens it up, and that's what we need. We don't need any more of this negative. We need hope for everyone out there. I always say that everyone has the potential for anything, any project, any business. It's just, they just gotta look deep, and what you said in the beginning is, search yourself, don't try to be somebody, maybe even go through something deep with maybe getting help, therapy, talk to somebody. That's going to transform you. It's a game changer.
Yes. Getting help is the key. Admit that you're sick, admit that you have something. Do not be ashamed of emotional, psychological, mental illness. Face it, face it and deal with it, and you're going to see that doors are going to open up for you. It's just, I'm living proof of that. Because I used to be really shy, and when I was in high school, I was bullied, and more so like grammar school. But in high school, I started to get popular. I started taking karate lessons. They used to call me Bruce Lee or Grasshopper. And I did that on purpose because I was tired of people telling me, hey, kung fu, hey, Grasshopper, and I actually am part Korean, so I thought, what the heck, I'm gonna play the game. I'm a martial artist now, because of that.
That's crazy that you think, and even during the time you were mentioning, like you're going through, a way of discrimination back then because of your Korean heritage.
Yes.
I don't know if you're aware about the Asian Lives Matter movement that was going on with discrimination.
Yes, I have heard of it, and Asian lives do matter. In fact, when I started driving Uber, I always had a mask even before the pandemic hit.
Interesting.
Because I knew that people have this concept that Asians carry disease,
Oh, wow.
and especially because they were wearing their masks already. And I didn't do it for a racial reason. I did it because I care about people, and I didn't want to make them feel uncomfortable around me if I coughed or sneezed or something,
Right.
Out of courtesy. That's all it was. Yeah.
Wow, that's encouraging to hear that you're actually looking out even before then. And I just wanted to share for people that are, introverted or want to start something like yourself with even like publishing books or any other direction, what advice would you offer to them?
My advice is to move forward. Take your foot, and then the next foot, and the next foot. And here I have a poem called "One Foot in Front of the Other." You have to start to start. If you don't start, you can't start. It's like you got to go. Will you be afraid? Will you be insecure? Yes, but that's exactly why you need to do it. Because you're scared, because you're insecure. That's why you got to go for it. And along the way, get books, read books, get the Bible, pray, talk to your neighbors. Don't be afraid of asking somebody, hey, how do you do that? You know, can you explain that to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is what you're sharing too. Is like I was thinking of humility. Is like yeah, it's okay to get help or seek help, but try to do both because you're gonna benefit even more. And if you're younger or older, it doesn't matter. Just start because you'll catch up eventually, and then you look back a year like, wow, I made so much progress because I was able to seek that help. I just think of Matthew 7:7, ask, seek, knock.
Yeah, the hardest thing to do is for you to admit that you don't know something, and the best thing for you to do is to admit that you don't know how to do something, because then you can go get help. You see, and I'll tell you right now, I don't know how to do all this stuff you're doing here, but you know, I love it, and maybe I'd like to do it someday, you know, but. The whole idea is if you close your mind and you say to yourselves, oh, I can't, then you can't. As George Lopez says, you know, we're not Mexicans, we're Mexicans. You know?
Some empowerment there. Yeah. And that's true. It's like if we kind of limit ourselves, then we'll never, you know, like you said, just find ways to do it, and even asking for the help, and then from there it's like the ceiling gets even higher and higher. You decide what the ceiling is, you decide where you can take yourself. And with that being said, was there anything that you had in mind?
You know, this funny poem, I call it funny poem. You know, we're talking about education, we're talking about, you know, taking risks and doing things, and you look for people who are going to encourage you. Well, in the 7th grade, there was Mrs. Nagasaki, my English teacher, and I have a poem that I hope she's probably not alive at this point. If she is, she's probably 90, and she's listening. Well, here's a poem for you, Ms. Nagasaki, from Tracy Elementary School in the city of Tracy. And I put on my reading glasses, and I love this poem, okay? So here it goes, and I'll conclude with this. You will go far. Message. My 7th grade teacher was very influential in my early academic years. She believed in me and told me so several times. She was instrumental in my receiving my Student of the Month award. I believe it is important to look back only to see all that you have accomplished. Imagine how much more you can accomplish for the remainder of your life. That's my introduction. That's not my poem. Okay. My poem goes like this: you will go far. If you use your brain, you will go far in this world, said Ms. Nagasaki. When I turned in one of my short stories. Of my own volition, I would often take my 7th grade vocabulary words for the week and forcedly use all words in a story. Occasionally, I joke around when I remember her words. I wish I could see Ms. Nagasaki again to tell her, you know, you were right when you said I would go far in this world. I'm going so far, I haven't gotten there yet. Today, as an older man, I remember her words of encouragement when I have a dream to keep and when I have a goal to pursue.
That was beautiful. And I don't think, honestly, guys, people listening, there's no other way to wrap up a podcast with none better than a poem like that. And yes, plenty of other poems are just, it'll uplift you. I know, like, it's something that even I was reading earlier today. It's just helped encourage me to move forward today when things are tough. And what's amazing, he has 4 books and yet a 5th one coming out for you guys to check out. And I'll leave it, it's on Amazon, correct? So
they're all on Amazon, yes.
Leave it on the description. And I'm sure you're going to do other things too. Even maybe down the road, you'll tell me about the invention. I can also share that if you want to support Villalobos. And even just to talk to him as well, I'll even put the Facebook just so they can be in touch with you.
Yes.
But I just want to say thank you for just being on the podcast and making time.
Thank you for inviting me, Peter. I haven't seen you in 10 years.
It's crazy,
you haven't changed.
And it's great to just reconnect. You know? That's what I saw with the beauty of the podcast, is just opportunities just to keep in touch with people and see where they're at, you know, from then to now.
And I'm proud of you, man. You're doing it. You're a college graduate. Keep going, man. Follow your dreams.
And you know, it's thanks to individuals like yourself that I'm able to just move forward and see the positive light, even post college. You know what I mean? Because it never ends. It never ends.
No, it never ends.
Never stops. But with that being said, that's gonna be wrapping up for the podcast.
All right. Thank you, Peter.